In the dim glow of the royal healing chamber, where shadows danced like uneasy ghosts across the vaulted stone ceiling, Queen Isolde sat unmoving at the edge of the massive bed. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood and the sharp bite of herbal poultices. Each breath she drew a reminder that life clung to Captain Rowan Voss by the thinnest of threads. His body, laid bare beneath layers of linen bandages that were already blooming red again, bore the evidence of a sacrifice no man should have endured. Hundreds of wounds, some no wider than a needle's prick from arrows, others long and ragged from desperate sword slashes. Yet here he lay, chest rising in shallow, tortured hitches, and she had not left his side for a single moment since the guards had carried him through the chamber doors hours earlier, his armor shattered and his blood painting the marble floors of the palace corridors. Her fingers, still trembling from the weight of the crown she had tossed aside onto the velvet chaise, hovered over a fresh seep of crimson on his shoulder. She pressed the damp cloth there again, gentler than the last time, willing the bleeding to stop as if sheer will alone could command it. The physician had warned her, his voice cracking with fear, that no soul could survive such ruin. "Your Majesty," he had pleaded before she ordered him from the room, "the arrows pierced too deep, the blades too many." He shielded the princess with his own flesh. Hundreds of wounds, it is a miracle he draws breath at all. But Isolde had silenced him with a look sharper than any dagger, her eyes burning with a fury born of terror. She would not leave. Not while Rowan's life hung suspended between the world of the living and whatever darkness waited beyond. Outside the barred oak doors, the palace thrummed with muffled chaos, booted feet racing along hallways, the distant clang of steel as guards hunted the last remnants of the ambushers who had dared strike at the royal procession. Every creak in the floorboards beyond made her pulse spike, a fresh wave of suspense tightening like a noose around her throat. Were more assassins still within the walls? Had the traitor's reach slithered this far into the heart of her realm? She glanced at the heavy iron latch, her free hand instinctively drifting toward the jeweled dagger at her belt. If they came for her now, while she sat defenseless beside him, she would fight until her own blood joined his on the sheets. But Rowan had already given everything to ensure that did not happen. For her daughter. For Isolde. A soft groan escaped his cracked lips, and Isolde leaned closer, her unbound hair brushing his fevered cheek like a curtain of silk. "Rowan," she whispered, her voice raw with the emotions she had buried for years beneath layers of queenly duty. "Do not dare slip away from me now. Not after you became her shield." Her mind reeled back to the forest road, the memory crashing over her like a storm even as she worked the cloth across his chest, tracing the edges of a wound that had nearly cleaved his collarbone. She had been riding just behind the carriage when the first arrows whistled from the trees, dozens at first, then hundreds, a black hail unleashed by hidden archers loyal to the exiled duke. Isolde's scream had cut through the chaos like a blade, the princess flung from the tilting carriage as its horses reared in panic. Rowan had not hesitated. From his position at the head of the guard, he had vaulted from his saddle in one fluid, suicidal leap, throwing his armored frame over the girl's smaller body as the volley descended. Isolde had watched it unfold in horrifying slow motion. The thud of shafts embedding into his back, his shoulders, his thighs, each impact jerking his frame like a puppet on broken strings. Dozens pierced him in those first seconds alone, yet he did not fall. He rose, sword drawn, roaring defiance as foot soldiers burst from the underbrush. Blades flashed. He parried one, took another across his ribs, spun to block a third meant for Isolde's throat. Blood sprayed from his arms, his legs, his neck. Wounds multiplying with every heartbeat as he fought like a man possessed, his body a living wall between her daughter and death. Isolde's tears fell now onto his bandaged torso, hot and silent, as she peeled away a soaked dressing from his left forearm. The gash there was ugly, puckered flesh where a mercenary's axe had glanced off bone. She dabbed at it with trembling precision, the herbal salve stinging her nostrils. How many times had she seen him train in the yards below her balcony, this man who had risen from stable boy to captain through nothing but grit and loyalty. He had never asked for titles or lands. Only her trust. And today, he had given his life for it. You took every strike meant for her, she murmured, her voice breaking on the words. Hundreds of them. I saw the arrows, gods, Rowan, I saw them tear into you, and still you stood. You carried her back to the horses while your knees buckled. You whispered her name, Isolde, safe, before you collapsed. His eyelids fluttered, not quite opening, and a low rasp tore from his throat. Pain contorted his features, the fever making his skin burn under her touch. Isolde's heart seized with fresh terror. Was this the moment? The one the physician had foretold, when the blood loss would finally claim him? She gripped his hand tighter, lacing her fingers through his calloused ones, feeling the faint pulse there, weak, erratic, like a candle flame in a draught. Stay with me, she begged, the words tumbling out in a flood she could no longer contain. You have no right to leave after what you did. Isolde is alive because of you. She is tucked away now, guarded, asking for her Uncle Rowan like she always does. She does not know yet how close she came. How you became the barrier between her and oblivion. The chamber door rattled suddenly, a sharp knock that jolted her upright. Your Majesty, came a muffled voice from the corridor, urgent and laced with fear. The scouts report 2 more riders fleeing the forest. We have them cornered, but... Leave us, she shouted back, her tone imperial steel even as her free hand shook. No one enters. Not until he breathes easy again. The footsteps retreated, but the suspense lingered, coiling tighter in her chest. Every second stretched into eternity. What if the ambush was only the beginning? What if the poison rumored to coat some of those arrowheads was already working its way through his veins? She had seen the dark streaks radiating from the worst punctures, the way his veins stood out like black rivers beneath his pale skin. Leaning down, she pressed her forehead to his, inhaling the scent of sweat and iron that clung to him. I never told you, she confessed in the hush, her lips brushing his ear. All these years, commanding you to guard my family, sending you into dangers no captain should face. I never spoke the truth that burned in me since the day you first knelt and swore your oath. You were more than my protector, Rowan. You were the one steady flame in a life of cold crowns and empty thrones. His hand twitched in hers, a ghost of strength, as if her words reached the depths where pain had dragged him. A faint sound escaped him, half word, half sigh, Isolde. It was the first time in years he had used her given name without the title, and it shattered something deep inside her. She choked on a sob, pressing the cloth to yet another wound along his side, this one a deep slice from a blade that had slipped past his guard while he scooped Isolde into his arms. Blood welled fresh under her fingers, warm and sticky, and she worked faster, whispering incantations from the old healer's books she had memorized in her panic. You will not die here, she vowed, voice fierce now. Not in this bed, not while I sit vigil like some widow queen. You saved her with your body as a shield, hundreds of wounds, each one a testament I will never forget. I will not leave this chamber until your eyes open fully and you see me. Until you know that the queen you served loves the man who bled for her child. Time blurred in the candlelit vigil. She changed bandage after bandage, her gown sleeves rolled high, hands stained red as she cleaned each injury with meticulous care, counting them in her mind as she went, the small punctures on his calves where arrows had found gaps in his greaves, the broader gashes across his back that spoke of how he had curled protectively over Isolde even as the enemy closed in. Each one told a story of unrelenting courage, and each one tore at her soul. The suspense gnawed deeper with every labored breath he took, his fever climbed, sweat beading on his brow, and twice his body arched in silent agony, muscles locking as if the wounds themselves were alive and fighting to claim him. She held him through it, arms wrapped around his shoulders, murmuring promises of gardens they would walk together once he healed, of Isolde's laughter filling the halls without fear. A